Okay. All right, we are restarting. Let's see how that works. Take 3. Skip straight over take 2. I guess take 2 was the reconnection part. All right. Ideally, hopefully the resetting reset YouTube. It does show me as connected to all 3 like it was before. So let's wait and make sure that people are coming in on the YouTube side. That was a bit of a bummer. I'm just going to go ahead and test the comment real fast. Do I see it? Yay, there we go. All right. Very cool. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Woohoo! Lucas, what's going on? Hello, hello. Sorry about that. We had a bit of OBS just dropped internet, and then it reconnected, but apparently it didn't reconnect everywhere. So, yay, we're back. Okay, cool. So just to kind of recap, because we had to restart the stream, we went ahead and we, you know what I'm going to do? Okay, just to recap. So basically what we did was we merged this all together. We were making these keys, we merged it together, and then from there we duplicated one of those keys, and now we are actually prepping it so that we can end up cutting. And we also scaled. We used Scale Master for that. And what we did for Scale Master was with everything visible. With everything visible, we ended up making a bounding box. So we went to Scale Master, we made a bounding box. Then we hit Set Scene Scale, and then we went to our Y coordinate and set that to 220 millimeter. And then we hit Set Scene Scale. And then we hit Resize Subtool, and then that's it. That's all you need to do to set the scene. So bounding box, Set Scene Scale, resize, done. And now we're going to go ahead and cut everything. So let's go ahead and do that. Reprep this back here. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and make that cut. I really like this song. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I really like this song. It's my jam. Okay. Okay. All right, now, before we make our cut, now that we have Set Scene Scale, we're going to go ahead and Dynamesh this officially so that we also make this watertight. So let's go to, it's just a rinse and repeat process. Let's go to Dynamesh. Let's go to our picker. Let's go ahead and pick a resolution. Let's go ahead and hit Control tap one of our history spots. So that way we know that our history is able to be recalled. I'm going to turn blur down to 0 and hit Dynamesh. And now that we have that, we're going to take a look at our beautiful resolution, make sure that it's good. And if we don't like that, then we're going to go to Subtool, Project, and then we're going to project history. There's no color, so we don't need to do that. But if we project history, it's going to project all the detail from that first mark all the way down to the second one. Now we got all that history back. And now we have this right here. And like I said, we're going to go to Polygroups, Auto Groups. I'm going to hit Control-Shift to get my Select Rec. I'm going to make sure that there are no floating bits, which there are not. Those little floaty bits just don't help out. All right. And now we can make our first official cut. So what we're gonna do is I created a folder called Cut Hands. Now with this area here, I did inflate it a little bit. I inflated it by 1.5, which is a number I kind of factored would be good. And now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this to a negative cut. And I'm gonna turn on live Boolean. And now this is where we get to take a look at our wall thickness and make sure our wall thickness is good before we commit to that cut. Okay, perfect. Down a little bit. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get the move brush now, because this wall is going to be way too thin. So I'm actually going to move, not the torso, because that's already set with the way it is. We want to actually move the hands out the way to make sure there's proper wall thickness. So we're actually just kind of taking the move brush, and with live Boolean turned on, I'm able to kind of just move this all. And now if we want to measure, because we have set scene scale, let's hit W for the gizmo. And then we're going to hit Y for the transpose. And I'm going to grab this point and come over here. And that's a little shy. So let's actually make that a little bit better. So let's hit Q to hide that. We're going to do the same thing. So we're going to blow this up, and we're going to make this a bit better. We get a nice wall thickness. Hey, you're back. Cool. Yes. Yeah, the internet really just dropped. I don't know if... I feel like Twitch dropped off now. I don't know if anybody from Twitch is there. If somebody doesn't mind just commenting real quick to let me know, that would be awesome. I feel like we're just hitting an internet slump today, so we'll try our best to work through it. So now we're just kind of making this wall thickness a lot better. Twitch is good? Awesome. Yay! Okay, great. Yay! I'm glad we got that sorted out. That's awesome. Okay, now I want to make sure too that I'm not messing up my design. So if we have to add a little bit more fluffiness to it, we can. This is where you have to kind of make that decision. Does it improve the sculpt? Is it preserving the sculpt, or are you actually having any issues? Luckily with the move tool, we can kind of just get it as clean as possible. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. No, not yet. I haven't decided because there's a new 8K printer. Hello, Vinvin. Or Vinny. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Glad it was working on Facebook side too. Every time I go to order a new printer, I'm like, there's another printer that I really want. I haven't decided on what printer I want now. I feel like I'm chasing my own tail, and I need to just decide on a new printer. Also doesn't hurt that I have friends who have printers, so I'm like, can you just print something for me? That would be awesome. But yeah, I'm torn between getting one that I know works like the Saturn, for example. But yeah, I just saw what they're dropping, and I'm like, I want that. I want it. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's make our cut. I think this looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and save it real fast before we make the cut. When doing this a lot with 3D printing, it's super important to just try your best to save as often as possible, because with live booleans, you have the tendency to cut something, maybe it breaks, you know, it's all in that setup. So by following along, you'll kind of get a good sense of like if something's going to work or not. But a lot of times too, if your model's too dense or the mesh isn't as clean as it could be, then, you know, it might give a little bit of a harder time for it to cut right. So I always save before the cut just in case, because you never know. We're going to come here, and now we're going to go Boolean folder. Especially since I'm working with 35 million right now, although it shouldn't be a problem. If you want to move affect not only the range of the brush size, but from the wrist to the knuckle in the small radius, do you use the infinite depth brush? Yes, actually, that is a great brush. If I wanted to move, so for example, yeah, in the middle of prepping that, let's come back for a second. Let's turn that off, and let's just come here just on this one. Yes, if I needed to move this whole section, like from here to here, I needed to move all of that at once. Absolutely. That's where BMN, the Move Infinite brush, really comes into play, because then I can move that up, and then everything in its path moves along with it. You do want to be careful with that, though, because let's say I'm like, oh, I want to move this right here. So I start moving this, and then I come over here, and then I realize it's actually moving it all the way through. So you do want to be careful just to make sure. But yes, that's the brush you would use for sure. It's like in the 90s, you buy a new computer, you get home, the new model's already out. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you. Yeah. Uh-huh. Absolutely. I didn't know a brush. I thought it was an option in the brush settings. Oh yeah, no. I would just say use the brush. Yes, you can. I mean, you could come in here into the settings, and you can absolutely, you know, go to modifiers or some sort of depth and control that with infinite depth. Yeah, you can basically make a move infinite brush for sure. It's a regular brush, boom, now it's move infinite. And you can decide what axis you want. It's defaulted at Z, but you can use X or Y as well. It's up to you. But with the move infinite brush, it's already brushed as preset there, so I just go straight there, and it works. Okay. Yay! I'm glad we're back officially. For those of you who might be just coming in, we had to, like, you know, we had a little bit of a drop, so trying to catch everybody up. Okay, now that we did this, let's go ahead. We've cut this. Let's do auto groups. And again, we're going to go with select rec, so control shift. We're going to touch. We're going to drag that and make sure if it's bouncing back and forth like that, then there are no floating geometry. Auto groups one more time just to make sure. Yep, that's fine. Perfect. So now we know that this right here is cut. Now what I would recommend is we want to avoid sharp edges as much as possible. So it would behoove us to actually come in here and either dynamesh this part one more time just to see if it didn't cut right, but ideally we just want to like clean these sharp edges up just a little bit. So we can come in here and just cut that up, just like we're not cutting a whole lot, we're just kind of softening it. Let's actually drop our intensity down just a little bit. And the reason for this is that a sharp edge, if it's not rounded off, can actually kind of cause it not to fit correctly. It'll get kind of caught. So it doesn't hurt to come in and just do this one little extra step. And because this is the mating piece to the torso, by coming in and just kind of cleaning this up and rounding this off, we're actually making it have a little bit more room. So it will fit even nicer from here. I kind of come in like that. There we go. And then we're going to check, after I clean this up, we'll check the tolerance between the two. And then we're just going to keep doing that. Now, we might not finish this whole piece today. It depends on, I think when I was doing the test prep, the middle section of his gi, his belt was a little funky. And I had to like merge that together. I think that needed a lot of prep work. But earlier, somebody asked about live boolean and creating a key that cuts in one fell swoop. So I'm going to show that process too, since we're covering all the different ways that we can cut a static key. Which really, there's only like, for me, I only use like 2 that are by far my go-tos. So we'll do that next. Quick question. Oh yes, this is ZBrush. Thank you for answering that. Let's see, hold on. I feel like I missed a question. Hey, awesome sculpting. Do you use subdivision or Dynamesh for print generally? For printing generally, I use Dynamesh because I can ensure it's a watertight process. But during the sculpt process, I usually start out with Dynamesh. Then I either retopo or just ZBrush to get a good mesh. And then if it's a static statue, I pose it and then I sculpt and pose. If it's something that's going to be rigged or articulated, then I will ultimately work in a pose or a T pose, and then I will go through all that process. So it just depends. But when I'm prepping for printing, I Dynamesh my model together, project history details back, and make sure that it's watertight. Quick question. Isn't risky making part of the arms going inside the gloves because of the printing changes? No, not necessarily. Is it risky making part of the arms go inside? No. No, it's not risky. What we want to do is make sure that it actually fits in perfectly. And what this is more of this is a trick that we use to hide seams. So you see here how, like, I could have just cut along this line and made it a straight edge, but it doesn't look natural that way. By causing the mating piece to have a little bit of an inflation and then cut, you're actually giving it a nice pocket, and that pocket is going to help ensure that it actually looks like it's one cohesive piece. So it's a little bit easier to find that. It's like not easier, it's like a bit extra step to find out, to make sure that the seams are cleaned up correctly. Does that make sense? Is there a new tool in version 7.0 to make F-chamfers? Yes, there is, absolutely. If you go to Bevel Pro, so Z plugin Bevel Pro, you can absolutely do that as well. For me, I just go in there real quick and clean it up. But yes, absolutely. Oh, awesome! I'm glad I'm helpful. That's always the goal. It's always the goal. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and check our tolerance now. That's going to be the key thing. Does this actually work? Is there enough tolerance? Because we had a set scene scale down here, we can actually check that. So let's turn on the mating piece and the piece we just cut. Okay. And what we're going to do, just going to hide that. There we go. So what you could do is you can actually kind of see already that there's a bit of a gap in between the mating piece and this piece. Now, one thing I don't want you guys to do is hyper focus on the fact that we can see down in there, because when you manufacture something, there's a shrink value that is unknown to you. And the only way you're going to learn that shrink value when you're dealing with printing is to print something, know what its scale is, and measure it afterwards. So when you're prepping your models, if you hyper focus in on this spot, then you know what you're if you hyper focus on this spot, it might freak you out, but you don't want to do that. Ideally, you want to make sure that it's a clean cut, but this is also prepping for that shrink value, which again is that hidden value that you'll only know when you test print. Let me know if that makes sense. So, but what we want to do is make sure that that has a good enough tolerance. So we're going to go ahead and take this one, and we're going to flip normals. So we're going to go to display properties and flip, and then we're going to click this guy and turn on transparency. So what this will allow us to do, and hopefully you can see that well, is we can see the mating piece of the torso coming into the arm. And this is to help us make sure there's enough room, not only for it to fit, but to glue as well. So we're going to take our transpose tool and measure that. So I'm going to hit W and then Y. So we have a transpose tool. There it is. And now I'm gonna zoom in here. I'm gonna grab one piece and I'm gonna measure across to one edge. And I'm getting 0.2 millimeter, which my printer didn't shrink that much. I probably shrank about 0.1 in total. So this is actually perfect to allow a little bit extra for glue. Woo! See, usually I inflate a little bit as well when I bullion, but sometimes it doesn't fit properly still. How would you know how much to inflate is enough or too much? So, so to answer that question, what I would recommend you do, first off, make sure that you're live bullying each time when you set scale. That's super important, because if you go to inflate your mating piece, but you didn't set scale, you're gonna get a 1.5 is a different value than when you set the scale. So first, make sure you set the scale. The second thing is with your printer, like I said, get yourself a pair of calipers, which you could find at any hardware store like Harbor Freights, or just Google calipers for measurement. You can find a pair for like $10. And what you'll do is make a 1-inch cube that's like 25.4 millimeter and print that out, and then measure that cube. If it's 25.4 millimeter in ZBrush, and then you print it and it's 25.2, that's your shrink value. That 0.2 millimeter, that's your shrink value. So then you can say, hey, I need to inflate by like 1.5, maybe 2.0, and then try it. It's a little bit of trial and error. I wish I could just tell you a number, but I found that with most of my printers, if I set the scale first and then I start at 1.5 inflation and then cut, it usually works. So I would say try to have a number somewhere around what I have it, which is about 0.2 millimeter between the mating piece and the insert piece. And that should get you pretty close, but each printer is different. So it's not a for sure, but it should get you most of the way. There must be print softwares that calculate the shrink value depending on the material. I honestly don't know if there is. When I spent years in manufacturing, that was a lot on the operator who ran the machines in order to figure it out, because each machine operates just slightly different. But I'm sure there's a formula somewhere on the internet that you could calculate it, but it's hard to say, yeah. If you find one, please let me know, because I haven't found one yet, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay, now that we got this, we're going to go ahead and flip that normal back, because we obviously don't want to be working with flip normals. We want them to be facing the correct way. And that's it. That's where we're at. Yeah, too bad, right? Do me a favor, make that program and then let me know, right? Oh man, we've already killed an hour. All right. Yeah, usually I model for groups and people there will always have different printers. My solution was inflate a little bit more than usual. Hey, that's not a bad way, especially if you're giving files to somebody and then they're just kind of like fiddling with it and making it work. Yeah, it can be hard. So I would say start with the 1.5 inflation after you set scene scale and you've sized your model to the size that it needs to be on export, and then test that. I would say try that, next time, and then go from there. And then write that number down. And then if it doesn't quite fit, go like 1.7, depending on like if it's like barely fitting. If it's not fitting at all, go like 2. And then test it again, and then write that number down, and then just tell yourself, every time I set my scale, I inflate my model at like 2, and then see if you get a consistent reading. That should take you most of the way. So, yeah, I would say try that. Okay. Now that we got that, let's go ahead and cut the head, because why not, right? So let's go ahead and save this, because we checked it all out. We got that. Now this is something that I'm gonna a little cheaty cheat, as they say. Let's take his head, and we're gonna go ahead and put that in its own folder. So Control F, call this head cut. And then I'm just going to go back into the hands. I'm going to copy this torso that we inflated. I'm going to put that right, just paste that right in there, because now we're going to use that. Now, just so you know, I like to cut one piece at a time, but if you set your model up correctly, you can cut multiple pieces with the same tool, absolutely. The reason why I'm choosing not to do that is because I don't want to complicate the stream too much, and I want people to be able to follow along. So if you're thinking, oh, you could just cut like the head and the hands and the torso in one spot, absolutely, but I'm trying to make sure that it's a little bit more simplified, so you're going to see a lot of that repeating process. But we're going to go ahead and just copy that and put it in this so we can control just the head itself. And I actually need to clean this up a little bit because this... So I have some conflicting geometry here. I have smooth geometry and then really sharp geometry. So let's fix this. And you'll notice too that like when you start prepping, you're going to notice things in your file that you didn't catch before. You built this whole thing, it looks amazing, you set up an awesome render, and all of a sudden you go to prep it and you're like, why is that broken? So let's go here, let's go split hidden. It's also related to ambient temperature, absolutely. We had 2 specs for machining parts. One was for the morning and the other was for the afternoon, but we are sending those into space. Ooh, that's really cool, man. That's really, really cool. That's really awesome. Do I have a Discord? Yes. Pixel Logic has a Discord. I also have my own personal Discord as well. I definitely recommend that you join both, because I'm in both. I can send you a link to both in just a second. Let me actually get that information. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, let me pop over here real quick. Let me just pop over here. Copy that. Boop. That is mine, and then yeah, we have a link to the Discord for ZBrush as well. Let me get that for you. Boop, boop, boop. Should have had this prepped on my side. That's my bad. There we go. There's that one. And let's see that. Copy. And this is the official one, which also might be in the description down below if you're on Twitch or YouTube. Let's see here. I start to design my own miniatures and caught myself spending too much time on the designing. I reshaped the final work multiple times. Maybe it would be better to hire some concept artist. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it never hurts. Absolutely. Just depends on your goals for that. I usually, when I design something, I usually follow a concept because it's just it's just easier at that spot. So highly recommended. Okay, let's go ahead and merge this down. Boom. All right, now that we have this, we're just gonna make this one piece and then I'm gonna cut into it, okay? So, and again, just kind of looking for weird little imperfections right there. I'm gonna cut that, so no big deal. So let's go ahead and let's control stamp our history. And then let's save it, and then we're going to Dynamesh it. So I'm actually going to save this as a number 3, so that way I just have it. I feel like I added an extra decimal, and I did not mean to do that. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and Dynamesh this. So the same process. And again, I choose the Dynamesh just because I know it's going to give me watertight results. So I'm going to go to Geometry, and I'm going to go to Dynamesh. I'm going to grab the picker. I'm going to pick a resolution that makes sense. Gonna drop the blur and then Dynamesh. That's gonna make it, and what Dynamesh does too, if you don't know, is that not only does it weld things together, but it closes holes as well. So if you have any geometry that doesn't have any end caps, then it's gonna close that as best as it can. Now that could cause errors, so you want to be careful with that. So just make sure that you kind of like make sure you close it up as best you can. But generally speaking, it's just Dynamesh will usually take care of that for you. Sup, Chris? I've been streaming for about an hour, and we got one more hour to go. Welcome in, welcome in. I see you have 128 gigs of RAM. I'm willing to get that much. How much does ZBrush usually use? Honestly, I have 128 gigs of RAM, not just because I am using ZBrush, but because I also do a lot of rendering. So, honestly, like, you don't, I find anywhere between 48 to 64 gigs of RAM perfect. The thing that you want to look at when you're shopping for RAM is actually the speed of the RAM. The higher the speed rating, the better quality that RAM will be. Because ZBrush is like 99% CPU driven, it's definitely a good combination of fast speed RAM with a really good processor, and you'll fly. All right. Okay. So now we have this guy right here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start cutting that. So we're going to go to our head torso, set that up for cutting. Let's make sure that the rest of the stuff is turned off. We don't need all that stuff. We just need that guy. And then let's turn live boolean back on. And now what we're doing is we're looking for how this is going to cut. And again, we want to make sure that our overhangs are minimal to non-existent. The way this is, if we solo this, for example, you know what we could do? Let's try this. Let's take this body here. This should plug straight in, but I'm actually thinking, because we're just doing the head, I'm not doing the rest of it, I actually might just cut this section here a little bit, like such. But then I'll have to make that cut the final. So I almost don't know if I want to do that, but I feel like that pocket might give me a little bit of trouble. That pocket seems a little deep. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to delete this one. Now I'm not recutting the hands, just recutting the neck. So I don't need to change the torso I used to cut the hands because we're just affecting the neck. But I do need to cut this torso, the final one. So let's go ahead and do that like such. Make sure we can't see that cut, which we can't, which is good. Okay, that will be fine. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to Control-Shift-D copy that one, come on up to the neck here, and we're going to go back to deformation, inflate 1.5, that's my go-to. Geometry, subtool I mean, and let's set that to live boolean. Yeah, that's going to be a lot better. That'll make sure it kind of locks in, but it's not like stuck. Also, speak of ZBrush specs, I can run ZBrush on my 7-year-old laptop. It just is. It isn't until like 3 to 4 million it starts to chug a little. So if you're smart, you can work on an old gear. Absolutely, yeah. ZBrush is actually great for running on a lot of older machines. Absolutely. My very first, like, I used to run on Mac, and then I went to PC when I got more serious about ZBrush about five years ago. And so what I ended up doing was I just built a basic gaming machine. And this was like around the time AMD chips were coming out. And so I got like an AMD Ryzen 3 and then ran ZBrush for about a year on that. And then I upgraded the CPU to 5. And then I got some more RAM. And then I upgraded to a 7. And then I got some more RAM. and now I'm running on a Threadripper, and I got more RAM. So, like, and I was able to run ZBrush well. What that did for me as I was progressing in my artistry, whenever I got to the point where my computer couldn't keep up with me, that's when I upgraded my computer specs. So as long as my computer could handle it, I was totally fine. As soon as my computer's like crying, then I'm like, oh, I'm better than my computer. It's time to upgrade my computer. And that's a good way to judge it, you know. But just do your research as much as you can, for sure. I will be streaming until about 2 p.m., which is in an hour for me. So it's now 1:08 Los Angeles time. So we're gonna go until about 2. What software do you use to render mostly? I used to use Keyshot a lot, but I have been transitioning over to Redshift. Redshift is a great renderer. It's very affordable, and it works with a lot of different programs besides ZBrush, so definitely worth checking out. It also has a lot of true colors, and it's really simple to get some good stuff. I do plan on, at some point, showcasing how to take and render in Redshift a little bit more in the future, so if you're curious about that, let me know. But yeah, like I said, it works with a lot of different programs. I have no opinion on Octane Render. I've never used it, so I have no opinion on it. Not today. I won't be showing the render process today because we're just focusing on key cutting. And actually, speaking of key cutting, let me show you the other way that was asked. I'm really sorry I didn't answer that question yet. Let me do that, and let's do that right now. Let's do that with another model real quick, just to kind of showcase that. So let's do this. Let's actually load a tool. Let's go to tool, and let's go here to just, we'll take this super average low man. Here we go. Okay, we'll take him for example. And somebody asked about the way I cut with live boolean by itself. So I'm going to turn live boolean off. I'm going to subdivide a few times, and then I'm going to go ahead and actually delete lower. So let's say I want to actually just create a nice clean key to both cut the entire process in one fell swoop. Again, I really do want to focus on that scene scale. So what I'm going to do is, because we already set scene scale on our KinMaster, I'm just going to go ahead and copy the subtool. Come back over here, and I'm just going to go ahead at the bottom. I'm going to paste that because it makes no sense to rescale. I already have a nice scale scene here, so I can work on that. And actually, I could just take this and make sure that he is around the same height. So that way I know everything's kosher. This guy's 200 millimeters, just like so. Let's go ahead and turn that all off. Okay, great. We'll put this in his own folder. Call it Live Bool Cut. Pew! Okay. And now we're going to make a key real quick, and we're going to use a plane for this. So let's go to Insert, Plane 3D. Now, like I said, this is another way to make a key cut. So we're going to go to Geometry, and I'm actually going to reconstruct subdivision. When you load in a plane, it actually has higher subdivisions that you're just unaware of. So if we just go to Reconstruct out the gate, we can start getting something that's pretty decent. And this is actually going to work out great. So we'll delete higher, and now we have this. So we can pull up our Z modeler, and we can just start making a key. So let's go ahead and select this area, go to Extrude, Polygroup All. I'm going to scale this out like such. Now I'm going to select this top part right here, hold Alt, and that's going to mask the opposite side and unmask that. Usually you would mask that off and then you know, tap. But here, if you just mask and hold Alt, it does that reverse masking for you. I'm going to set this in the middle, and I'm literally just going to scale that down to have a taper. That's it. Now, it's creased all along the edges, but what I want to do is make sure that I have a big enough disc to make the cut and so it separates the head from the body correctly. So I'm actually going to hover over this, go to Crease, and I'm going to Complete Edge Loop, and I'm going to tap, hold Alt, and just tap and get rid of all the creasing. Okay, now I'm going to take this edge here, I'm going to grab this, we're going to, on this edge, we're going to go Extrude, And as no, let's not do that, actually. I'm overcomplicating it. We're actually just going to mask this right here. And I'm just going, no, we weren't complicated. Don't mind me. Yeah, let's hover over here. Let's go edge loop. Let's go snap the surface. Red. Come on. No, you want to. Oh, my goodness. Right when you want to show something. You know what? We're going to skip that. That made almost no sense. Come here. Come on. Edge loop. Why are you fighting me today? Okay. Let's back this up a little bit. Let's actually prep ourselves just a little bit better. Let's go back here. I want a little bit more space. I was being a little aggressive. Let's turn this on. Let's actually make a smaller key. Something like... Nope, that's too big. Let's make something like that. That should be better. Sometimes I get ahead of myself, so don't mind me. Same process. Move that here. Scale that down just a little bit. There, now we have a bigger plane. That was way easier. Okay. Now, what's cool about this is we're going to turn on, real quick, we're going to go to Display Properties and Flip. And what's cool about this is, actually not flip, double. So you can see here we have basically a male and a female side in manufacturing terms. So we're going to use that to our advantage, okay? Now, something to keep in mind that I like to do when I make this key in particular is I like to go to crease, and then I like to crease polygroups. And what we can do actually is let's go to polygroups, let's group by normals, then crease polygroups. Now, this is what I like to do is I like to go to the crease level and set that to about level 3, okay? And the crease tolerance, we should be fine at the 45. Now, when I start subdividing, when I get to subdivision level 4 and 5 and up, it's actually going to naturally give me a little bit of a softer fall off. Okay, so that's the perk of that crease level. Back that up a little bit. We can drop that down to, let's say, a 0. So and that's going to drop that there. So let's keep that at like maybe 2. That'll just give us just a little bit of a fall off. Nothing too crazy. Okay, I'm going to hit D, which will activate the dynamic subdivision. And now we're going to place this key where we want it. So let's go here, smooth this around. There we go. We're going to start to place this where we need it to be. So let's go in here. Now this is why I wanted a nice flat surface, because that's going to act like a knife. So we're going to come in here, angle that down however we want. There we go. Something like that. Okay, kind of center that as best we can so we know we have good mesh. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to dynamic, and we're going to go to thickness, and we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a thickness. Now here, again, we're kind of going to play with those numbers a little bit. Because we have a scene scale, we can measure if we would like. So when you're using thickness, this number here isn't actually an actual distance. This is a percentage. So maybe something like 0.0015 will give me something close to what I want. And I can measure that. Zoom in here. Now we'll actually apply that, so that makes that thickness true. And now I can measure that. And that's 0.33. So that's actually pretty big. We don't want it that big. So let's go ahead and back that up. Drop that thickness to maybe 0.0007. Okay, maybe 0.01. There we go. Go ahead and apply that. And now let's remeasure that. Let's check that one more time. We'll point to another. Okay, that's better. That's 0.2. It's 0.22. It's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So now we have a good thickness on how big that cut's going to be, and that is going to be equal everywhere. Internally from this edge to this internal edge, it's gonna have that same thickness across the board, which is excellent. So we're gonna go ahead and center that. Excellent. Now all we need to do is go up to Subtool, drop that in the same folder, set this to subtract, turn on live boolean. Now make sure, now this is what's cool about it. We can zoom in a little bit. We can see where that key is. So we can move that key now, right where we want it to be. That's looking pretty good. Should be pretty center, so we're fine. Just make sure that wall thickness is nice. Now, if you're like me and you work with dynamic subdivision on all the time, just make sure before you make the cut that you actually apply that dynamic subdivision, because if you don't apply that dynamic subdivision, then it's not going to cut at that thickness. It'll actually cut at a 0 plane thickness, so it won't actually cut correctly. So make sure you apply that first, so that thickness is true. And then all you got to do is just come up here and go to Boolean folder. Now we have this piece here with this head that's cut. Go ahead and do auto groups. Select this guy. There it is. There's our piece. Nice and cut. Let's go ahead and split hidden. So we have our mating piece ready to go. So that's how you would do that. There you go. Nice and cut. How do you know if the thickness is increasing thickness outer or inner part of the extruded faces? That's a great question. And the way to see that is actually, let's come in here. Let's back that up for a second. So I'm going to back that up until it's dynamic. Okay. So what you have here is actually an offset. So 0 thickness. What ZBrush has thickness do automatically is that it's actually inflating equally on the outer and the inner surface at the same time. So if I were to go like, all right, that's where we want it, this offset feature right here, that actually is telling you that it's 50-50 split. If I go negatively, it's actually working away from the normals. And if I go positively, it's actually inflating outwards towards the normals. I normally, 9 times out of 10, you will see me leave this on 0 because I kind of like anticipate that. But if you wanted to change that, we have that option. Just adjust that offset one way or another. Nice. Yeah, so that's how you would do that. And then, of course, true, you have your segments. You can control how many segments you have, your smooth subdivisions, et cetera, et cetera. So all that can get controlled through there. And all that is Control-Z actionable. What do you mean, but my model got smaller, like 2 millimeter? No, not my whole model. The cut was 0.2. Oh, I see what you're saying. So the cut itself, we don't want the cut to be 2 millimeters. We want wall thickness to be at least 2 millimeters. Anytime we make a cut, we want to cut as little as possible, but we want a good thickness. So around 0.2 millimeter for cutting is acceptable because that leaves you enough space to have glue and it fit correctly. At least that's what works on my machines mainly. So what you want to do is keep wall thickness. Anything that is going to be printed, if the wall thickness is not 2 millimeter, if it's smaller than that, you're going to probably have problems. Anything bigger than that, you're fine. When you're cutting, you want the cutting to be as little as possible, but you need to cut something. 0.2 millimeter is actually, it's not that big to the human eye, but it's big enough to allow it to fit correctly. So yeah, I can see how that got confusing. So great question. Thank you for bringing that up. How much do I make? More than a little and less than too much. I don't know if I actually know. So I guess I'm going to say I don't have an opinion on that. Okay. So does that make sense? Does this cut method make sense to everybody? I want to make sure like we can dive a little deeper into who, what, when, where, and why if we need to. Have I tried to make a fungus head like clip to match two parts? So no need of glue. I have tried to make more, yeah, like clip in ones. Yes, I don't prefer them because most of my statues are static. But if you wanted to approach that, what you would need to do actually is just make sure there's enough space for that flexibility, and you're also getting into what kind of material you're going to want to have. So, for example, resin ABS-like is a little bit more brittle. So you would want to make sure that you have a strong, like, don't get me wrong, ABS resin is going to do it just fine as long as your math is right. So let me show you that process. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've done it before. It's a lot of fun. So let's do this. Let's prep that insert. So let's actually just get another plane. Do we want a plane? You know what? No, actually, yeah, we could do it with a plane. Let's do it with a plane. Because if you don't want it to rotate, like those swivel clip-in joints would be good for like if you wanted the torso to move. But I'm just thinking. Now I'm just thinking. I don't know if you can see the smoke in my fire go. Smoke in my head. Smoke in my fire. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So let's come here. Let's make this. Let's repeat this whole process. So we're going to come something like that. So actually, I wouldn't taper it. I wouldn't. Yeah, we could taper that. Yeah, let's taper it. Let's just taper that a little bit. You always want to taper a square one as much as possible. So what we're going to want to do is actually kind of make sure that this gets like a little bit of a space in between it. So what I would do is actually model that. So let's come here to insert edge loops, multiple edge loops. Let's do something like that. So actually come here and come here. Now you're going to want to make sure that the space in between this is actually going to have enough room to kind of close on itself. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure that you don't have any massive overhangs when you do something like this, but you are going to want a little bit of a lip that goes around so that it catches, so that it doesn't fall out. So I would say play with this a little bit. That's going to be your best bet. So let's come here. Let's actually go to QMesh. Let's actually make this a different poly group. Like that. Go. Let's make one that's not standing out so much. Let's go to QMesh all. You're going to want something like that so that this can bend in on itself. So that when you push it in, it actually kind of folds in like that and bottoms out. Yeah, definitely useful for moving parts for sure, yeah. And then what I would recommend we do, this is me thinking on the fly. I don't build too many of these. So don't mind me. Let's actually get something like that. What I would say is kind of go to like QMesh polygroup all. Scale that out a little bit. You don't want too much. You don't want too much. You're going to want to be careful here. So let's actually go to insert. Let's actually mask that off for a second. I'm going to take slice curve. I'm actually going to add my own custom edge loop right there. So if you mask off the whole model and slice curve through, you're actually creating custom edge loops. It's a really, really fun way to do that. I'm actually going to round those edges off, maybe. insert single. This is kind of an idea, not a guarantee. So don't hold me to this, but definitely point you in the right direction. Creating some support edge loops just so that it doesn't break too much. Yeah, so we get something like that. Okay, and then we're gonna go with thickness and turn that up. Again, let's go 0.001. He said questioningly. No, I wouldn't do it like that. No, I wouldn't use the thickness on that. What's the difference between Q-mesh and extrude? So extrude just extrudes out what it just basically extrudes out what you're looking for. Like it literally is just, it's just extruding, right? But if you noticed how I've actually pushed this down, Q-mesh actually allows collapsation of polygons. So it actually allows you to kind of, you're not cutting in as much. If I were to try to extrude this out, if I were to come here, hover extrude, let's go ahead and push this one in. Wow, I'm like deleting the wrong surface. I come here and I try to push that in. It's actually cutting in and it's giving me a different response. Where with Q-mesh, I'm actually able to collapse that entire thing. So it has, Q-mesh has a little bit better communication between the polygroups and the vertices, where extrude is just literally doing that. Oh, thanks. Let's see here. In this case, if you need anything to empty spaces like glue, the cut zero thickness, you know, it'll shrink a little bit after printing. Can the cut have zero thickness? No, you don't want zero thickness. You need to not have zero thickness as possible. What I would do with something like this, I haven't played with this one too much, but what you would want to have with this is make sure that there's just enough space for this. So ideally what I would do is I personally here, I would make this a two-part. So I would actually duplicate this out. Come back here for a second. You know what? Nope. Come back here, blah, 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 blah. I would duplicate that. And then what I would do is I'd actually come through here. Let's drop this back down. And I would actually weld this back together. So I would actually make a male and a female. I'd make them separate. I wouldn't make them the same. So let's actually isolate. Let's hover over here. Let's go to delete all polygroups. So that deletes both sides. Like that. And then I would actually rebuild this. So I'd make two. Right? So let's see here. So let's go to bridge, edges. All right. Of course, I have all this mesh now. Let's come over here. 1 second. So let's actually go to insert. Let's delete these unnecessary edge loops here. Here and here. Delete that, delete that. There we go. Yeah, delete that one, delete that one. Okay, now let's bridge this back together. I love thinking on the fly like this, so. You guys are helping me out here. Whoa, okay, yeah. So there to there, there to there. So we're rebuilding this whole thing. We don't need that. Here to here. Please hit the right one. Let's actually go to this face and try and do nothing. That's kind of fun. Be out on this. Rotate this around. Let's actually make this easy on myself. Let's rotate this around this way. This truly wasn't truly center home, so let's go ahead and send that home. And let's actually do a mirror and weld. on the Z coordinate, come here, and I would rebuild that process. But for demonstrations purposes, let's do it the hard way, just so that we keep it all identical as much as we can. It'll be worth it at the end, I promise. Let's rebuild this to this. This guy to this guy. This guy. Here? I keep clicking the wrong one. It's chasing me. Please, don't chase me. News at 11. Okay. So now we have this, right? And we did everything super difficult. So I would make sure that this was scaled up a little bit more. So I would basically make two spots. I would make this one that would mate in correctly, and then this other one that would meet it, so that I would cut this for it to turn double on. You know what I'll probably do is I'll probably build one that actually works, and then we'll give it away in one of our newsletters, if that's something you guys are interested in. But here, just in theory, so we can see this all together, if we had this built up here, then when you push this in, you see how it's starting to hit that wall? This would collapse, and then it would snap. It would snap in, and that would fit perfectly, so that way you would actually have a nice fitting piece. So that's in theory. Let me build one, and then in our newsletter, if you guys want to subscribe to the newsletter, which is over on our website, we'll actually give away something like that for free. I have not tried the Space Mouse yet, but I am very interested in it. Yeah, I like to do everything the hard way, you guys know. Yeah. Okay. So let me know if that's something that interests you. Let's see. What time is it now? Did I spend way too long on that? No. Okay. We got time. Perfect. So in theory, that's what you would want to do. Let me build something, and then we'll release that. Great question, by the way. But that's how I would approach it. But again, even with that approach, what I would recommend is that you end up making sure that you test it before you commit it to. An actual project. And the way you could do that, the way I usually test my keys is I just take a cube, and then in that cube, I clip it, cut it, print the cube. It's not that much resin. Not too bad. So, all right. Let's go back and let's continue working. Now, I've already finished Ken, and I plan on releasing him soon enough. So, that's going to be available at some point. But let's go ahead and go through this process so you guys can see it. Does anybody have any questions so far? Or are we pretty good on that? Yes, made tons of clipping method. Oh, you're an industrial designer. Nice. We never did it in ZBrush. Usually Camsoft. Yeah. Not a problem, not a problem. Hopefully that gets you started in ZBrush. So you have experience on it already. I'm sure you'll whip something up real fast, quick, and in a hurry. But yeah, we'll build something. We'll build something. I actually have a set of live Boolean cutters and prepped keys that I use on a daily basis that I could package that up. All right, let's continue through, and let's finish the rest of what we got prepping. So let's go back to the head. And I think at this point we didn't actually set the head up for anything else. So let's go ahead and clip it officially. Okay, just turn everything else off, turn that back on. Yeah. There we go. Now we have that cutting in here, which I think that should work out just fine. I want to note that little spot right there. I want to highlight the torso, make sure it's not me. So where that is clipping, it's not really leading, so that could have just been an internal little gap or something I missed, but that's not going to affect the functionality of it. So I could spend time cleaning that up, but nobody's going to see that once it's put together. So I'm not really going to lose any sleep over that. So let's go ahead and go live Boolean. The struggle is real. Absolutely, Nixnox. There are guides for plastic snaps and then for the injection molding that are available. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, you can always find something. That is for sure. Okay. I don't like this song at all. This song is giving me crazy anxiety vibes, so skip that. I don't know what's happening there, but let's move on with ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So now we're gonna go through here, and we just went ahead and cut this. So now I'm gonna go ahead and go to polygroups, auto groups. I'm gonna go with my select rec, click this one time, and look at that. So now my model actually does have some floating little bits. And that happens sometimes, especially when you cut your model, because not everything is going to clip the way you want. So now that I know it's there, I'm going to go ahead and control drag to hide that. And now we're going to go ahead and hit delete hidden. And just to ensure that the world is turning the way we want it to with this, we're going to go ahead and do our picker on the Dynamesh. Turn that down, and let's Dynamesh one more time, just to ensure that it is truly watertight. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to polygroups, auto groups, click that, and there we go. Perfect. So that is the only thing this subtool has on it, so it's not recognizing any more floating spots. So I would say that that is actually pretty good. Down to this last one. Oh, you don't hear the music? Okay. It's very much in the background for us. Okay, that's good. Whew, that's good. Here, I'll turn it up a little bit if you guys want to hear it. I try to have music for me and you guys, but I don't want my voice to be overthrown by music. But at the same time, it's like, I always find that sometimes you guys can hear it and sometimes you can't. It's weird. Now we can hear it. Nice. Or now we can't hear it. Can or can't? I don't know. Well, music's not important. All right, now we have that set up. That's good. So now we have that head that's in there, and that's mating pretty good. Again, there's a little bit of space. We can see the difference between the two. So let's go ahead and check this spot. So let's click the torso. And now we're going to go ahead and display properties. We're going to flip that. Nope, wrong one. We're going to go to the head now. Flip the head. Now go to display. Come in here. We're going to see that gap. Again, we're just going to measure that gap. So let's take our gizmo, take our transpose. Let's kind of scale that out. And we got about 0.19 millimeters, so almost 2. I think that'll work fine. Again, that's just the amount of space that I'm looking for. Yeah, it's okay. All right, good. I have one model and it's just finished. Its length will be 1 meter, but sometimes Dynamesh is not enough when I was modeling. It was a little low resolution. I couldn't divide it. Have you tried to let me see here real quick. So with that, have you tried to actually go to deformation and unify? Or when you're going to scale master, come on. When you go to scale master, there is a unify, ZBrush scale unify. That will unify your scene. So if you're realizing that your model got too big for ZBrush, click ZBrush scale unify. That should correct that issue. Because I've made stuff that should technically be over 100 feet, which is well beyond your 1 meter. So if you're having that issue, once you set scene scale, go ahead and ZBrush scale unify, and that will unify your model in, and then just reconfirm the set scene scale. That should fix your problem. You have a large SLA printer? Nice. Is there an option, I think, to work with 50 plus mil? I mean, you can work with 50 plus mil. Right now, I'm working with 35 million. There's not an option to work with that. It's just if your entire project is at 50 mil, you can work with that, but you know, you want to try to optimize your scene as best as you can. So you don't want to be sitting here with like 50, 60, 70 mil and trying to cut. So what you could do is when you use Dynamesh and you use the picker to pick the right resolution for that scene by going through and seeing what the highest, densest spot of that subtool is, you know, go ahead and control tap up here and then you can just project your history back. So then all your detail doesn't get lost. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Yeah, let me know if that works for you. I hope it does. It should. Another way too, if you wanted to unify your whole project, you could go up to Z plugin, and then you could go to transpose, and then send everything on over the unify under deformation unify for that subtool, and then send it back. I like to stick with Scale Master, but that is another way you could do it. Oh yeah, you were talking about this, like create a super high res with this PC while you're, yes. Yeah, so yeah, just work with. I end up working around 35 mil, and then I dial it back down with deformation. Do they still have Dynamesh Master to download? I think you could pick your poly count and Dynamesh with that. Yes, I don't know actually. Okay, actually I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is. You would have to go to the ZBrush website and then go to resources. If it's not there, the one that they do have is, which is the same difference, is actually Dynamesh Utility, which does the same exact thing. So if you go over, let's pull up a new tab. Let's go to let's come, not there, come on. Oop. Okay. Where are we? Resources, there we go, support resources. And then Z plugins. Whoop, come on back. So let's see here, Z color. Yeah, if you go to Decimation Master, that stuff's already there, blah, blah, blah. Scale Master, cool. Quick Scaler, depth, blah, 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 blah. And utility. Z Startup, where are you? There it is, Dynamesh Utility. This is basic, this is Dynamesh Master, so just, this is what you need. Just download that, it'll do the exact same thing. But yeah, it looks like Dynamesh Master has been removed, but Dynamesh Utility will do exactly what you're talking about. That'll let you pick the exact resolution you want. So you can say 1,000,000, and then there it is. Nice, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What did you do at Funko when you worked there? What lines were you a part of? So I was actually, what I can tell you is that when I worked at Funko, I was a part of their digital pop, and also had sculpted some pops that were going to be for production, normal production. I don't know what's been released, so I can't really speak on that because the projects I was finishing up actually, I believe are still in process. So, but I made pops and then I helped with the digital pop line. And with the digital pop line, they actually make digital cards that are animated. So I dealt a lot with sculpting new pops and then making old pops and current pops ready for animation. So we did a lot of breaking the model back down to T-pose, rebuilding and recreating it so that way they can be animatable. Okay, what are we at? So we got just a couple more minutes coming through. So let's go ahead and continue that process. Actually, let's cover export because everything else is the exact same thing. From the legs to the feet to the base to the middle section. All of it is, everything I showed you in today's stream is exactly how I would approach. I would just troubleshoot any parts that came up that needed to be fixed. So now let's talk about exporting because I feel like that's a topic that a lot of that question comes up a lot. So let's cover export. So let's go to the model that is completely finished, and let me just show you that. So let's clear this up real quick so you can see everything that is completely finished. And this model is decimated, so everything is keyed and cut and ready to go. Now I want to export this out. So in the export process, first things first, again, making sure that we have a cube or something like that that is going to give us the right scale. That's important. So let's just assume this is a brand new file. I opened it up and I haven't set scale. So I want to cover that one more time. So let's go to Z plugin, which is over here. And we're going to go to scale master. And again, we're going to go with new bounding box. That's going to set a brand new bounding box that is going to cover the entire model, right? And then we're going to set scene scale. And luckily we had already set scene scale. So we have 231 in height. So we're going to click that measurement. And then if that wasn't the scale I wanted, let's say I actually want that smaller. I'm like 230 is too tall. I'm actually going to click this and just go 200. So let's actually shrink it. So 200, then resize all subtools. And it's going to go through that whole process. And that's not going to change my key cuts because that's actually, we worked within the scale. So it's going to resize with that scale and factor. So that distance should not change at all. And now we just need to export this, right? So what we need to do is we want to go up to 3D Print Hub because I want to export this whole thing. And when I first come into 3D Print Hub, all I need to do is update the size ratio with the subtool of my choice, right? It doesn't really matter what subtool I have. If I have this and I say update size ratio, work with 200 millimeter tall, that's going to export now at that size. But here is a caveat. If I select the subtool and then I hit update size ratio and then I pick this is a different size. So it's going to assume that this subtool is at this size of 200 tall, which it's not. So if you're exporting out with 3D Print Hub and you update sized with this cube, and then for some reason you're like, oh, I need to fix this model real quick. So you make an adjustment. Before you export out whatever subtool selected, hit update size and pick the appropriate unit. And that's going to allow you to export out at the proper size. Then we're just going to go ahead and export to STL, which is the most common, or OBJ, or 3MF. It's up to you. I'll go ahead and say export STL. And then we're going to go ahead and call this our Ken STLs. And then we're going to come on in and hit save. And I'm going to say, hey, choice 2 is my favorite. Subtool name as file, and let that export. Thank you again. Absolutely. Yep. I'm actually creating an as ZBrush for that very specific topic for scaling. So look out for that coming soon. That question comes up a lot, and I can understand how that could have been misled. So we are covering that question soon. So that will be coming very soon. So now it says we're exported correctly, which is awesome. So now we can go ahead and we can check that. And what's really, really cool, so just come on over to my file here. 3D print stream, and there are my STLs. So that exported out perfectly fine. And then that's it. Then you throw it in your slicer and you're good to go. Hello, Emperor Cheese! What's happening? We're about ready to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. So did that make sense? Let me know if you guys have any questions on that part too. I can go over that one more time if that's helpful. No, it's gonna be happening. Yeah. Yeah. I stream at noon Los Angeles time or Pacific Standard Time or PDT, whatever the D stands for, until 2. So noon to 2 every Wednesday. My streams are going to consist of stuff like this where we're going over very specific tasks. I'm also going to be starting up the How It's Made series again. So we'll be covering a few how to make certain things. And then on top of that, sometimes it'll just be a stream of me sculpting. So whichever, my streams are going to consist every Wednesday, but there will be, a lot of times it'll just be a theme or a topic that I can cover. So absolutely. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate that. All right. Let's go ahead and save this officially. Nice. But yeah. And let's go ahead and take a look at that explosion one more time, because that's always fun. Boom. Just come here real fast. Export. We'll just explode it all in the same. There it is. Beautiful. Nice. This sculpt's looking awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, now I need to render it. And then we're good. I have a colored version. If you guys would like to see the color version, let me actually load that tool up. I'll show you the color version. I think this is the one I'm working on right now to come up with a really cool render. I'm going to be rendering this in Redshift. I'm really excited about it. Redshift's been really fun for me. But yeah, this is the color version. Let's put Skin Shade 4 on there, so you guys can see that a little bit more. And let's actually add in just a little bit of love here. So let's go to Render. Let's go to Preview AO. Let's turn that on. Ooh, that's gross. There we go. There we go. You can see that a little bit more. Prep that here like that. 1, 2. There we go. I colored in ZBrush. Absolutely. Yep. Nope, 100% in ZBrush. This is all poly paint and texturing. It absolutely is. It's my fan art of Ken Masters. Good call. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Always appreciate it. Thank you for having such amazing questions. I really love answering them to the best of my ability. So again, don't forget that we have ZBrush live, or I'm sorry, Ask ZBrush questions that are being answered, and they're generating every week. So we have a couple coming out every week. We're also going to be doing some How It's Made very soon. And of course, too, we're going to continue to try to bring as much content as possible. So hopefully that's all helpful. Anyway, guys, you guys are amazing. I will catch all of you next week. Bye, 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 bye.